guys, welcome back. This week, none other than the Carpenters took out the crown. They came in at 56% for the vote, and Raising Sand by Robert Plant and Alison Krauss has risen up. I think eventually it's going to take the crown. I know a lot of you guys want to see that one, so we'll get there. I'm really excited about today's episode because I love the Carpenters. Absolutely love the Carpenters. I grew up listening to them. My mum is a huge fan, and we always would listen to them when we would go on our family holidays, and they just bring so much warmth and joy and beauty. I just love what they were about, and I know they were sort of a bit like, you like the Carpenters. It wasn't like the cool thing to like, like the Beatles or the Rolling Stones. I think because they were more mellow and more, their songs were a bit more like animated and storybook kind of feeling, which I love. I mean, you've got like Top of the World, you've got Jambalaya, all those songs that are quite like, they're almost like kid songs. I remember some of them, I think some of them we used to listen to at school. Definitely I know we sang Top of the World at our, what we used to call like assembly singing, where we do that at school. So today, I'm just gonna make sure I'm recording this because I've made videos before where I've recorded the whole video and then there's nothing there. So yes, we're good. So this is one of the first compilation albums that they actually made. It was Carpenters' greatest hits. And they've got, this was released by AM Records, and this came out, and this album came out in 1972, which, seeing as the Carpenters only came out in 1969, it was pretty soon to release a greatest hits of record, which I found interesting, and subsequently found that this was the first of many greatest hits or compilation albums. We had the Gold album, the Gold Greatest Hits album, which had more future songs from them, because this one has a lot of their hits from the early days, but for a band to release a greatest hits so soon, I found interesting. I also couldn't find this particular album on any Wikipedias or anything like that. I could only see listings of it on eBay with no other information, so I don't know quite what the story is with this compilation, but it's here. Here we have it. So let's have a look at it. So I picked this up at a market in New Zealand, and it's really old. It's it's got, I mean, it's from 1972. So this version says, it might fall apart with, like, while I'm recording this. Where are we? So this version is distributed in New Zealand by Festival Records, original recording and licensed by A&M Records, Hollywood, California. And side one has They Long to Be Close to You, Help, For All We Know, Baby It's You, I'll Never Fall in Love Again, Superstar. Side two has Rainy Days and Mondays, Ticket to Ride, Mr. Gouda, Eve, Bacharach, We've Only Just Begun. Yeah, so I don't know if you can hear, but this is really very old. I mean, this is 53 years old, this piece that I'm holding. And it's already come apart a little bit, but here they are. Karen and Richard. For those of you who don't know, Karen and Richard were brother and sister. I believe Richard's the older one, and they were both musical as teenagers in high school, and Richard was more the composer, writer, pianist, and Karen was actually a drummer. And a lot of people don't know that. I'm sure people that grew up in this age may know that, but a lot of people these days don't know that she was first an incredible drummer. I believe I could be wrong, but I believe that she was one of the best female drummers in the world, at least for her age. So they started, Richard was keyboard, vocals and arrangement, Karen was drums and vocals. They were born in Connecticut, and then they moved to California. In the 60s, they formed a trio called the Richard Carpenter Trio. So it sounds like Richard was kind of taking the reins. And then they signed with A&M Records in 1969. I feel like 1969 could have been like the best year in the 20th century. Like, so many amazing things happened that year. It's crazy. So they actually released a cover of the Beatles song Ticket to Ride, and it was a more sort of slower version, and it was not long after that they released Close to You, or They Long to Be Close to You, in 1970, and that was their breakout song. Whenever those keys start, ding, 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 why do, it could be their most famous song, aside from maybe Superstar. So yes, we have that on this album. And then they released Now and Then, which featured Yesterday Once More. Then they released Horizon, which included Only Yesterday and Please Mr. Postman. And I actually, so many of the songs, quite a few of them I didn't realize were covers. So I believe We've Only Just Begun may have been a cover, and definitely Mr. Postman was a cover. But a lot of people heard those songs first through them, and then later found out they were covers. So I didn't realize this, but I found out that they had their own TV special called the Carpenters' very first television special, and I think they had subsequent episodes from there. I'll need to try and find that. I'm sure it will be on YouTube somewhere, but I'd be interested to see that. I have seen videos of Karen playing the drums, which is insane, and singing at the same time, which I think is its own incredible skill. I couldn't. Playing the drums and singing is a whole different thing from, in my opinion, playing the guitar and singing. I feel like your brain would, the training in that would be, it already takes, a bit to learn singing and playing guitar, but drumming, I feel like you're moving at a different pace to what you're singing quite often, and yeah, it's an interesting one, an interesting skill for those that can conquer it. The band had huge success up until the late 70s, and then they started to come into some personal struggles, notably with Karen, and she developed anorexia, which wasn't widely known about or understood. I could be wrong, but I believe there was an interview or a situation where someone made a joke about her weight, or there was a comment about her weight, which spurred a sort of a downward spiral. But I'm sure there's more to it than that. I have a cousin who had anorexia at a very young age, and that was a result of a lot of compounding trauma. It wasn't just one instance, and I should say trigger warning here. It wasn't one instance of one comment per se, but that was the straw that broke the camel's back. So yeah, for Karen, it just, and I often wonder what, had this happened, had she been around in this day and age, whether just with the awareness, whether it could have been helped. So yeah, because while that was happening, I read Richard was having his own struggles with substance abuse, and by the time they released their final album together, they both were not in good health, and you can see that visually throughout the videos they released in the late 70s, early 80s, you can see the decline, which is really quite heartbreaking. And when you listen to Karen's voice, I think she has one of the most beautiful voices I've ever heard in my life. Female voices. I think it might be my favorite. It's just got this crystalline quality, and I would say Alison Krauss has that as well, that real angelic sound. So yeah, heavy stuff, but unfortunately that is their history, that is their story, and in comparison now we're making these beautiful, lovely, uplifting songs, and unfortunately we're battling with their own demons. Karen died at 32, which is so young, and I believe she had a solo album that came out just before her death, but people say that, you know, her passing helped bring a lot of awareness to anorexia, and I believe it would have as well, because it was such a high profile situation. So yeah, I think she would be proud at how far things have come now. I did do some research on people sort of hypothesized about what the Carpenters would have done had they still continued and had Karen still been alive. And it's interesting. A lot of people say that they would have just continued to make the same music. Some say they would have gone, you know, super pop 80s, a bit like how Dolly Parton went more pop in the 80s. And yeah, it is interesting to think what they would be doing if they were still around now. I mean, they'd be in their 70s. Oh, I know Richard's still around, but Karen would be in her 70s. So that is our episode on the Carpenters. I really want to get the Made in America vinyl, which is, I think, one of my favorite albums of theirs, which has Those Good Old Dreams and Touch Me When We're Dancing. I love that song. They had some really nice signature sounds that I feel like a lot of other people mimicked at the time. And I think Richard was just an incredible composer and writer. And they just had such a amazing synergy. So yeah, I'm a big fan, and I really hope you enjoyed this episode, even though it's more of a sad one. I hope you have a lovely rest, and I'll see you again soon for another vinyl deep dive.